Good morning. Welcome to another In Conversation with myself, Paul Salahuddin Armstrong. This morning, I'm joined by Khadija Khan. Khadija is a journalist and she's also a commentator. She writes a blog. She's done many things over the years. And we're going to discuss something about how the standards of debate have deteriorated within our society and some other issues of mutual concern. So, good morning, Khadija.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you so much for having me on.
How are you today? Enjoying this? I think it's a bit brighter again after a little bit of rain and stuff, and starting
Yes, the
to.
weather is pleasant, I would say today, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a beautiful summer day.
It is. So I think we both saw a situation in Oxford the other day that caused us both some mutual concern. But before we get into that, could you tell us a little bit about your own journey and what made freedom of expression and the right to challenge orthodoxies so important to you?
I was born in a Muslim majority country, Pakistan, and um, it is not a norm in Pakistan to have free speech being exercised, in a very casual manner. You have to pay a huge price to just state a simple truth in that society. You can get the idea of this kind of attitude from now days when there are restrictions have been imposed, on the freedom of speech, that people who want to report from inside the country to the outside world, they have to take permission from the Pakistani authorities. And this is not the first time it is happening. It's been always like this because I believe that it's the reason is that Islam is the state religion in Pakistan, and anything that is against Islam, or that is even considered a slight criticism of Islam, of any shade of Islam, any radical or any misogynistic, element of Islamic discourse, it is deemed blasphemous. And we know that there is a death penalty for the blasphemer in the law in Pakistan. So I think the norm of freedom of speech, the values of freedom of speech, I never experienced in Pakistan. I had so many questions growing up in Pakistan about Islam as a religion, because there are so many things that I experienced as a woman, as a girl, as a young girl. I was discriminated against, and I was told that this is something that is prescribed in Islam, and you have to accept it as a divine ordained obligation. So you cannot question it, you cannot talk about it. So there were so many questions that were, snubbed in my, young mind.
And
So
that must
I,
be
I, I
really awful.
really
Yeah.
felt that at some point I felt like I have been, being oppressed in so many ways, and I have no right to question that oppression. And that made me think about the value of having free speech, as a right protected under the law of the land. And I've realized that we don't have it in Pakistan. And that made me more curious and more, interested in questioning orthodoxies. But still, while I was in Pakistan, it was next to impossible for me to raise any question about religion, about social attitudes, which were heavily influenced by Islamic teachings. So when I left Pakistan, for all the good reasons, I would say, and I realized there is an outside word, it was quite surprising for me to see that there is a word where you can just think the way you want to think. You can question so many things. You can question radical ideas. You can question religious orthodoxy. And then you will not be penalized. You will not be criminalized for that. And that realization was very, I would say, sensational for me. And I went to Germany. I lived there for a long time. And in that society, we have freedom of and freedom from religion. Actually, this is where I get the opportunity to, look deeper into the um, orthodoxies related to Islam and associated with Islam. And I realized that, yes, that's my moment to question all the orthodoxy that I have never been able to.
Yeah, even you mentioned Germany there. There's some quite stark differences between the way Germany and Britain actually handle this interaction between different religions and the balance between, how religion is practiced within society, isn't there? I think that that's maybe something worth just commenting a little bit on before we go further.
You would be surprised to hear that, yes, Germany is a Christian majority country, but you don't see people, wearing religion on their sleeves 24/7 in that society. Even on the day of Christmas, you won't see people, in the streets, walking down the streets and just, trying to express their religious belief and all that. You will see them, being with their families, having parties at home, and enjoying, their religious festivities, and of course, going to church and all that. And in that society, I realized that the religious minorities, they do enjoy freedom of religion, and nobody is stopping them. There are mosques, there are temples, there are gurdwaras. I mean, there was a gurdwara nearby my home. I used to go there. So it was like people were free to, practice their religion freely. And there wasn't, even in schools, I realized in Germany that, there was a class, religious education class, and that was not a compulsory class. It was optional. Kids either can go to a religious class or they can choose to go to library where they can draw, they can read books, and the other activities they can do in library, school library. So for me, it was really refreshing because in Pakistan, I was forced to, study all the religious text and, Quranic verses, and I was forced to memorize so many things that we need to say and to in during the prayer and fasting time and in your day-to-day life. So it was quite refreshing for me to see that yes, that can be an option, in a society where you can choose from between religion and secularism, where you don't want to have any religious influence and you just want to exercise where you feel inclined to. So that's the thing I experienced in Germany, but my experience in Britain has been quite different from Germany because, yes, we do have religion, freedom of religion and from religion here in the UK. However, there is a subtle, you know, I would say, obligation on people to respect religion. Don't question religion. Don't
Mm.
say harsh things about religion. It's a very subtle, general, I would say, norm here in the UK, and it is frowned upon when you are talking about religion in a critical way. So that was the thing that I found different here in the UK, even here in the schools when kids go to religious education class, they are not allowed to question anything, anything at all. They are taught,
Yeah, I
in those.
remember that from when I was at school. It's even though we have freedom of religion in this country, I remember until I was 16, I think, maybe 14, I think maybe 14. It was just before my GCSE. No, actually, I did a GCSE. Even in GCSE, I think they've changed that since. It's not, you don't have to choose RE as a GCSE. But when I was at school, it was compulsory, even at GCSE level.
Yes.
And it was basically Christianity studies. There
Hmm.
was a couple of token lessons because the national curriculum required it on other religions, but it was basically Christianity studies.
Hmm.
And I remember just switching off in RE classes at school because it never resonated with me.
Hmm.
And I mean, if someone told me years later what I'd be doing, I'd be quite surprised, but yeah, it is quite concerning that. And the way they have that in Germany, that anyone who doesn't want to do it, they've got an alternative for them. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I don't think that there shouldn't be any religious education in schools, but I think
I couldn't
it's
agree more.
important. I think it's important the whatever religious education is in school is balanced, and it gives a balanced approach to all religions, and also atheism. And these are the things that people, can or may believe, and
Paul, I would
allow
like
people
to,
to weigh it up for themselves. And students must be allowed to question. I mean,
yes,
it's interesting what you're saying about Pakistan as well, and I know it wasn't interesting for you when you were there, but it's the law that they use, the blasphemy law, is actually British. So perhaps it's not quite such a strange thing that we have this subtle thing, even in Britain today, that you're not supposed to question religion, because the blasphemy law that they have in Pakistan was a British blasphemy law that they've kept. And thank goodness
but
we've
there
got,
we can have a difference of
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, well, thank goodness we've got rid of it. But some of that was only a few decades ago, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That it was
yeah.
actually repealed even in the UK and in various places. And in Northern Ireland, it was quite late that they actually repealed that. I was shocked because I didn't realize until the other day how recent that was. Um, it's quite extraordinary when you think in so many other respects how open-minded our country is.
No,
But yeah.
I agree with you that I think this is the reason why we see a certain, uh, part of a certain community is growing very radical in their beliefs because they have uh, been emboldened by this attitude that is prevalent here in the UK that you should not question religion, you should not disrespect religion, you should not mock religion, though we do it with like in under the law we are allowed to do it and we are not criminalized for doing it, but this norm, it's quite subtle, but I think it's quite intense in
Mm.
terms of impact. That I mean, if you are talking about religion
But
in a
I would
practical,
think it's actually responsible not only for the extremism on the side of certain religious groups, but it's also responsible for why we have so much atheism and agnosticism and anti-religious sentiment. Because and you tend to find this in any society where religion is enforced and it's not allowed to be questioned. Atheism is growing in Saudi Arabia, it's growing in
yes,
Iran, it's
across
growing
the
in
Muslim
so many
world.
countries,
Hmm.
whereas conversely, where religion was banned in China and in Russia, afterwards there was a resurgence of religious sentiments, and also in Eastern Europe, because where it's clamped down upon and banned, then people actually want to explore it. So
Yeah,
I mean, surely we need a much more healthy approach where people are allowed to, if they want to follow that, they can follow that,
exactly,
whichever brand of it is they want to follow, and you can have
exactly.
healthy discussion and disagreement so people can find something that works for them.
Yes, Paul, I have been named or called names, and I have been branded as the far left ex-Muslim because I always try to draw a distinction between religious beliefs and people.
Mm,
And for me, it is very crucial to maintain this distinction. So there are people who find it problematic. They think that if I'm an ex-Muslim, I all I have to do is just to say bad things about Islam and then bad things about those people who are following Islam. Whereas I
mm,
strongly believe that individuals, they have a right to choose whatever religion they may choose for themselves. What they don't have as a right is that they cannot impose their understanding of their religion or their religious belief, tradition, norms on
mm.
other people. This is where I, criticize this whole attitude. Otherwise, I strongly believe in freedom of and from religion.
Yeah, I get some criticism as well, as you can imagine, because I'm entertaining these sorts of conversations, and people think, well, as a sheikh, as a Muslim chaplain, you're supposed to just be talking good stuff about religion, and not criticizing, not questioning, not encouraging people of other beliefs. That, well, I agree with you on this. You know, people have to have the freedom to believe what they want to believe. Otherwise, I believe faith has no value. And I get this from the Quran because Allah says in the Quran that said there's no compulsion in religion. And why is that? Because if you force someone to believe something, how can they believe it? You know, belief has to come from the heart. It has to be something that a person wants for themselves.
I
And
agree
that
on
can
this
only come
point, yes.
about in an environment where people are allowed to question things, where people are allowed to assess different views. I mean, how can we have a situation where, as it mentions in the Quran, that truth stands clear from falsehood? Well, how can you test that unless you let people talk about all sorts of things and see what stands, you know, what actually makes sense? And so it's actually weirdly it's Quranic, and yet you've got a lot of Muslims that rally against this. And we mentioned schools, but also, I mean, universities, all our educational establishments from school level right the way through to colleges and universities are supposed to teach people not what to think, but how to think. And there's a very clear distinction in this. What to think is when you tell people that they must think this or that, and they're not allowed to have freedom. How to think is assessing things, assessing information, assessing ideas, ideologies, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, applying critical reasoning skills to these things. And our education system is supposed to teach that. It's supposed to be a space for that. So, I mean, it is quite concerning that we have seen situations in our colleges and universities where that is not the case. And do you really think that they're still fulfilling that role?
To me, freedom of speech has never been a religious value. It was born out of blasphemy. And it is very important in free societies such as ours to defend our right to free speech, because only these societies, which are influenced by secular values, in these societies, people of faith and no faith, they can have equal rights. They can have a right to exercise whatever their beliefs are freely without being criminalized, for
Mm,
that. So I believe that it is very important that we defend freedom of speech on all levels in our society. And the universities you just mentioned about, they are the product of our society. People who are born into the society, they are going to school, which are again the product of this society, and then they are going ahead in their student life and joining universities. And then we see the same views, radical and extreme views in terms of censorship and stifling, views which are not in line with their own personal views. It's all, stemming from the social fabric, and then they are taking root in our educational institutes. So I find it really devastating, to be very honest, because I believe that when you educate yourself, then you open new horizon upon yourself. Then you learn a lot about the world, you explore things, you explore truth, and to the quest to seek truth. It's never ending. You do it like as long as you're alive. But in the universities in the UK, what I have been witnessing that the quest to seek truth is just snubbed, and in a very, very grim manner, where people they think that they have achieved something incredible, but in my opinion, they have lost the hard-earned right to free speech. And it was not like some external powers who were doing it. It's them. They are doing it to themselves. I mean, the policies of various platforms, the concept of safe spaces, and then the fear of chilling effect, as they say, are suppressing diverse opinion within universities. Now, it is really concerning that the new policies has been announced that there is going to be some kind of scheme allowing university staff, external speakers, and non-student members to express concerns about educational providers, as reported by the Department of Education, actually. And then there would be this procedure that all complaints will be investigated, and they will recommend that universities review their decision and or pay compensation or improve their process to uphold the values of free speech. I find it really concerning that now we have to have laws and policies in place to regulate free speech in our universities. That's supposed to be the beacon of free speech, where people can just express their opinions. Historically, if you look at the origin of universities or educational institutions, they were born out of the necessity to express opinion freely, or to explore, new opinions, and to talk about it, to discuss that. And tell me, Paul, where else you can rebut bad opinions? Tell me about that. Because we cannot deny the existence of bad opinions, bad opinions that seek to demonize human beings, that seek to demonize human dignity. Where else you're going to rebut them if not universities? We can rebut and confront bad opinions only when we are allowed to express opinions, without any restraint. And for me, this is not what is happening in our universities. People are taking these liberties, hard-earned freedoms, for granted, these young people, and they are too afraid to face an opposing opinion. I mean, they just want to shut down, stifle anything that is remotely uncomfortable. And that is a huge, huge concern. And I would say it's a threat to free speech that we are facing at the moment.
I hear what you're saying. I share similar concerns on this. It's like also this whole thing about not platforming people. It's like I agree to an extent, but the thing is, it's like that should be only if you're like promoting them and there's no challenge to what they're saying.
Exactly.
But at the same time, how can you actually dismantle ideas or test ideas or how can you destroy them if you don't let people talk about them? A lot we find this with many things, that they tend to go underground and they grow, and before long it becomes like a cancer within society that is infecting too many young and impressionable minds. So I mean, you look at this whole thing with conspiracy theories, has got out of control within certain parts of society. um, well, these ideas, they should be tested, they should be questioned. And if they are ridiculous ideas or dangerous ideas, then they should be challenged and dismantled somewhere. And you're right. I mean, where else can we do that if we do not do that at universities? But at the same time, we also have to hear them out in order to challenge them. Now, I mean, we initially decided to have this podcast conversation after some concerns about the recent Oxford debate, in which Jonathan Sakadotti, Tommy Robinson, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and certain other people were in attendance on different sides of this debate as to whether society should be suspicious about Islam. And there was a little clip of Aisha Khan where she appeared to be threatening Tommy Robinson. Now, for clarification, I do want to add, I have since watched a video from Tommy Robinson himself, where he has actually defended Aisha Khan, and he said she was not threatening him. She said something a bit silly, but that she wasn't actually threatening him. And there wasn't a Muslim mob outside, but it was actually a leftist mob. And, he didn't mention it straight away because obviously he was in like when you're in the moment within that debate, and he wanted to win the debate, and it kind of when it suits you, you don't necessarily raise these points. But I actually give credit to him that even if it took him 4 days, that he actually came out and made a clarification. And I also want to praise the Oxford Union for actually inviting people, from diametrically opposed on this side of debate so that they could actually have that conversation. It was an important debate to be had. But still, I mean, there are some concerns around this. I mean, when Tommy actually got up to speak, he was heckled so much. I mean, it was unbelievable. It wasn't also one-sided. I mean, there was also people on the other side that were really heckled. I mean, you've got to let people speak in order to actually challenge them and question their ideas. If you don't let them expound their ideas in the first place, and I'm saying that as someone who profoundly disagrees with a lot of what Tommy was saying from a technical perspective. But at the same time, I understand there are certain kernels of truth in what he's saying, which are of concern. I don't think they are about all Muslims. I don't think they're about Islam per se, but certainly there are issues that need to be addressed, which is what triggered him in the first place. But there are these concerns still from that debate. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Um, First of all, I would like to address, certain points that you made.
Hmm.
The thing is that what this Oxford student, Aisha Aziz Khan, she said in the beginning of her speech, I never said that it was a threat. I said
Hmm.
it was a subtle threat. It was a silly thing to say. And of course, the connotation of the words can be, interpreted in a very threatening way. So it was really
I
unwise.
wasn't specifically saying that you were saying that
No,
it
no,
was a
I'm just
threat. I'm just
telling you
saying this
that
this
why
this
I
circulated on
was
social
having an
media.
object.
A lot
No,
of
no,
people were saying that.
I understand your point, but I'm saying it because I also commented on that particular clip, and it was a subtle threat. And the way she did, while directly addressing Tommy Robinson, it was very, unbecoming of Oxford University, the legacy. It's not something that should be taking place in a debate, in a civilized debate, in such a prestigious institution. So it needs to be condemned, not because I or want her to be categorized as an extremist. I don't think that this one sentence that she said does necessarily categorize her as an extremist, but I do believe that we, as a part of the community, we need to condemn these kind of attitude because if we don't do it, then of course we embolden these kind of attitudes within certain pockets of our community. And as for Tommy Robinson coming out and saying that he didn't see it as a threat, or whatever she said was, I think it's very ironic that Aisha Aziz Khan, she was defending her religion as a peaceful religion, and even then she thought that it is okay to make such subtle threat to a panelist on the opposing side. And then there is a Tommy Robinson, a person who has been branded as an agitator, as an extremist, as a far right. He is the one who is trying to find some common ground with the people, with the speakers on the other side. And now my criticism of Tommy Robinson is very well known. I
Mm.
have criticized him. He has actually blocked me on X because of my criticism of his opinions. So there is no way that I'm endorsing him or I'm supporting him or I'm defending his positions
Mm.
on different issues. I'm just giving my opinion on what I witnessed during that particular debate. I believe that this was the denial on the part of the Muslim community because when Tommy put out this post, saying that, oh, it was not threatening, then there were some Muslim commentators. They were saying that, oh, look at Tommy Robinson. It took him 4 days to say it. Meanwhile, the far right mob, verbally lynched this student. I think that was a denial. They are refusing to acknowledge that whatever that young student said was wrong. She should have not said it. It is irrelevant to whatever was said in the debate. And the sheer effort to demonize a person rather than tackling the views of that person, I think that was the huge, huge failure on the part of the Muslim speakers. They were not
And this,
interested.
I agree with you, and I was actually more concerned because I think the rest of Aisha's speech was actually pretty good, but then when Michael Dawood came up, I noticed for about 5 minutes he was focused on Tommy, his life. It had
And his
nothing
body
to
language,
do.
if you have
Yeah,
noticed, it was so intimidating,
it
as if he is
was.
in a
And oh,
wrestling,
I'm from Luton
box.
as well, and it's and it was like none of that was actually relevant to the topic of the debate. And
And
it
they were
was
not
only the
even,
latter part when he mentioned about some of the good things which the Muslim community does and some charity organizations. Okay, that
yeah,
was actually interesting.
yes.
I wish he'd have actually spent his time discussing those things instead of spending all that time just basically having a dig at Tommy Robinson. I mean, like I said, I'm not a fan either. I'm quite critical, but in that particular venue, they were there to talk about an issue and to decide whether Islam is something that we should be suspicious of as a society or not. And with the behavior of some of the people on the side defending Islam, one has to conclude that they were actually helping the argument to the people that they were debating
Exactly. They
against.
were making the case for the
Yeah.
preposition. You know what? I have noticed this thing that all the Muslim speakers, they were not like coming from a place which is, you know, rational, which is evidence-based, which is, a calm and very, tolerant. Because if you have noticed, those two female speakers and then the male speakers,
Mm,
they were all aggressive in their tones, as if they are not willing to take anything that is opposing to what they believe in. And they're just asserting their understanding. There was not a single element of persuasion, which is the key part of any debate. To win the debate, you have to persuade people to believe in your argument. Now, the audience were mostly Muslims. Of course, they were on the side of the opposition even before the debate started.
mm.
So that was an atmosphere where they won the debate even before the debate started. So for me, it was a good effort, and it was commendable that the president of the debating society, who is a Muslim Palestinian woman, she actually she was determined to hold this debate, and she did what she said. But the thing is, the attitude I observed from that team, it was not something that I can say support the motion of upholding freedom of speech. There were personal attacks, there were demonization of people on the other side, but I didn't see anybody,
On this as well, I will have to
constructively
commend.
dealing with the
Yeah,
opinion on the proposition side. And, I would say that people who were very much, proud of this one thing, that yes, this is the first Muslim president of Oxford Debating Society, I would say that has brought shame to this claim, the performance we witnessed, that this is not something good, that we are having a Muslim president of the debating society, and that debating society is unable to uphold the values of free speech during the debate. I mean, outside of the debate, yes, she made huge claims about freedom of speech. But when the debate was being conducted,
mm.
I found it, staggering that there was nothing that would suggest that, okay, yes, we are actually tackling your opinions, we're willing to rebut your opinions. It was like,
Well,
to be
on
very
this, I will
honest,
disagree slightly because I mean, some of the speakers on that side were particularly lackluster, but I will say that Arwa Al Awais, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Her speech had no personal attacks in it. It was totally focused on
Who's
the topic.
the president?
Yeah, the president. Her
Oh,
speech, yeah, her speech
no,
was
no.
actually
Her
focused
speech was
totally on.
actually, it was, again, if you have looked at her body language and the tone, it was very aggressive.
I agree with you on the tone,
And then
but
what she
at the
was
same
saying,
time, what she
again,
was
she
actually
was cherry
saying
picking,
was, yeah.
the peaceful verses from Quran just to rebut the problematic
But I
verses
mean,
of
people will do
Quran.
that in a
And
debate. I mean,
actually, she
it's
was
yeah.
negating her own argument
Mm.
in doing so. And I'm just talking about overall
Mm.
performance of the speakers, that it
But I
was
mean,
not
compared to the other
impressive.
speakers, at least she was on topic, and she focused on that. There was no one
No,
of the
she
things
was
that
trying to
concerned.
blur the line between Islam and Muslims. She was making it all about Muslims. Her most
Mm.
focus was on Muslims, as if the other side of the
I don't know. I would
debate is
disagree with
trying
you
to
a bit
demonize
because
Muslim. However,
yeah.
Tommy Robinson, Lawrence Fox, and Jonathan Sakadat, they explained it again and again that we are not demonizing Muslims, we are not criticizing individuals, we are talking about Islam. And she was trying to blur the line between Islam as a set of belief and Muslims as people. And in doing so, she was being disingenuous, in my opinion, because she was trying to make it all about an attack on Muslims. And in doing so, she was trying to literally discredit all the arguments made on the proposition side instead of tackling them, instead of rebutting them. She was just saying that since you are saying, which is demonizing all Muslims, it's not something that we need to be discussing. It's wrong. It's bigotry. It's Islamophobia. And I think Islamophobia is a term that has become a weapon in the hands of religious zealot. But I don't want to call these young people religious zealots. I
No,
want to give
I
them
don't
a
know if they
benefit
are.
of
But
doubt. I
yeah.
still believe that they are young people, they are learning, and hopefully they will learn, from this experience, and they will try to present their argument in a much, much better and constructive way. That this is how it's supposed to be during the debate. But this one term has
But I
become,
think if you look at the speakers on that side, her speech was fine if, like, the other speeches had been constructive and dealt with other issues. She would have been perfectly fine to focus on that particular aspect of, the historical narrative of Islam, the Constitution of Medina, things that even I've talked about on occasion. But at the same time, it's like all I'm saying is her speech was pretty strong compared to the others. Even if I agree she could have improved the tone and stuff, but there was a lot of straw man arguments and gaslighting from the other speakers. And I will praise her on the fact she didn't do that. She actually focused on topic,
yes,
and and that's an important point that we should make. And again, the other side, I would agree with you. They didn't do straw man or gaslighting on the other side. They were actually gracious to the other speakers. That there were things that they said that I would profoundly disagree with, but at the same time, they were focused on the points they wanted to make,
yeah,
which were related to the topic.
which is fair
Um,
enough, to be very
and
honest.
however accurate those points are,
Hmm.
however I would say that even they're like cherry picking to an extent because they're picking on certain bad things. But of course, I suppose if you're trying to make a point of suspicion, you are gonna cherry pick the bad points and say, well, what's your explanation for
I mean,
this?
this is
I mean,
exactly what
you're not
the
gonna
other
cherry
side.
pick the charity stuff, are you, and the good things because there's nothing to worry about there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this particular thing, because slander, gaslighting,
Hmm.
I mean, these are things which, even outside of these university debates, I have seen them explode,
Yes.
over the past 15 or 20 years that I've been doing what I do. Uh, Initially, like on social media, but in all different venues. And I mean, this is becoming like a real problem within
Yeah.
society. And how can you like
Exactly.
discuss issues and resolve things when you're not allowed to discuss them? Because if you say certain things which are taboo, so to speak, or perceived as taboo by certain parties, instead of dealing with the issues, they straight away jump to, well, what's wrong with you? Not what's wrong with the point, but what's wrong with you that you will say such a thing?
You're raising that point.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
Uh,
the thing is, again, I'm not talking about Islam as a religion. I'm not
mm,
criticizing Islam in this podcast. Our focus is what's going on in the universities,
mm,
why they are unable to entertain ideas, free of constraints. And Oxford University has become, in my opinion, an echo chamber. This is not the first time it happened. There was another debate on the issue of Israel-Palestine. Now, again, I don't want to go into that issue, who is right, who is wrong, but what happened during that debate, it was devastating state of free speech in that
yeah.
particular university. There were Muslims, they were so hyper in their assertions, in their reactions, in their clap, in their, shouting, it was it seems like there is a problem, not with all beliefs, but with one particular beliefs and the followers of that beliefs who don't believe in freedom of speech. I mean, as it appears, it's not my verdict, because I do
Mm,
believe there are Muslims who are very much in favor of upholding freedom of speech. I have family members, I have friends, I have, people around me, and I do acknowledge that not all Muslims, they act in the same manner, when their religion or religious beliefs are being criticized. But as it appears, when we are talking about particularly what's going on in Oxford, there is a problem with one particular belief and the followers of that religion, which is Islam. There are Muslim students, even though if they are on the position of being a president or on the committee of that debating society, they are unable to understand that, yes, people here in Britain, they have a right to criticize Islam, and you should not be defensive as a Muslim, because this is not the criticism of Muslims. Not all Muslims, they behave the same way. Not all Muslims, they, implement the certain verses of Quran or saying of Prophet in the same manner. People, Muslims, they are from different part of the world. They conduct themselves in a very, very different manner. So you don't have to be defensive whenever you listen to the criticism of Islam. They should have this understanding that in Oxford University, let people come, let them say whatever they want to say, and then you should be ready and willing to counter those arguments with a better argument if you have any. What
mm.
I observed in these debates related to issue of to the issue of Palestine, and then to the issue of Islam, I felt that people, Muslim students, audience member, they are not willing to listen to any criticism of their beliefs. And that is a problem, because that is making uh, people on, I would say, who are coming from the bad place, uh, it is giving their understanding of Muslims credence, who want to demonize, Muslims, saying that, oh, all Muslim are extremists, all Muslim are the supporter of terrorism. They are actually giving them credence, and it is a sad state of affairs, in my opinion. They
Yeah.
need to
And if we
be
care
on the
about is,
forefront of removing this assumption
yeah,
from the understanding of people that no, we are not this kind of people. We don't adhere to any extremist views. Yes, we love our religion. We want to, defend our religion, but in peaceful manner, the way we do in civilized societies. We don't mind listening to the criticism of religion. I think these people who are
but I think
educated.
that's the other thing as well. I mean, how many of these people would be quite happy to sit there criticizing the Bible, criticizing Christianity,
I
criticizing
mean, Muslims do
Judaism or
all the
Buddhism?
time. I can tell you
Exactly.
that.
And
They
the
do
thing,
it here in this
I'm
country.
aware of it. And the thing is, it's like you can't have it both ways. If you want
Yes.
to do that, then you have to accept that Islam also can be questioned and criticized. Um, who is ultimately right or wrong? Only God knows. But the thing is, it's like, people have to have that space for discussion. And either that, or you can't discuss any of them. And I know a lot of these people wouldn't like it if they were told, no, 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 you cannot say that. You cannot question the Bible. You cannot question this. You know, it's like, well, you know, it's the same principle. It either, I mean, you know, something actually came up at my university where I remember I was sitting in my office as a chaplain, you know, at the University of Birmingham. And I had some Muslims come in. They wanted to have a meeting with me, and they were like, brother, we've got to discuss something with you. Okay, sure, sure, no problem. There's um, there's this lady who's going to come on campus, and she's going to discuss loads of haram things. And really, who is this person? And it turns out there was a speaker that had been invited, who was a Muslim speaker, and she was going to speak about her book, which is all about her sex life. And apparently, she's led quite an interesting one and's been quite open about it. And you know, they had a real problem with this.
Oh my gosh.
And I said to them, I said, look, I said, you have events at the university where you invite speakers in that I'm sure a lot of people on this campus are going to have a problem with and disagree with. The university still allows you to do that. I said, if you shut this, or you try to shut this down, I said, you're going to find the same thing with your own events and with your own speakers. I said, this woman is exerting exactly the same right of free speech that your speakers have. And the thing is, if you shut it down for one, you have to shut it down for the others. And I said, what do we have left then? As it turns out, I actually, thanks to them flagging it up, I thought, oh, I better go and see this.
Exactly.
I ended up going along, and it was nowhere near as bad as what they thought. I mean, you know, she was actually quite a pleasant person, and it was a really good event. It was quite healthy, actually. She was just trying to, you know,
You know,
say to people
Paul,
that they have to think about
Muslims,
their
they become
relationships and, you know, be a bit
Muslim,
more honest and open about them and have more
yeah,
authentic relationships.
exactly.
That's fair enough, you know.
You know, Muslims in this country, they become very defensive whenever it is said that Islam is not compatible with Western democracy. They become very defensive, offensive, like, oh, how can you say that? We have this, we have that. But look at this one particular example you just described. I mean, this is a democratic right of an individual to express their opinion without any fear of life, you know, and without fear of any repercussion at all. So here you are not allowing that speaker to say anything just because you find it offensive. You are not adhering to the democratic values of the West, of the
Mm.
Western society where you live in, where you are born, where you are raised in. So then you feel uncomfortable when this harsh reality is just said directly to your faces that your beliefs are not compatible with the Western democracies where people have the right to express their opinion without any fear. So, in my opinion, what is going on in the university right now, in Oxford in particular, it didn't happen overnight. It's been happening for years, for decades now, that people from Muslim communities, there are groups, you know, they are operating in debating societies, in other communities, in the university, on the premises of the university. They are doing their dawah. They are trying to, protest, organize protest in universities whenever there is an event. And if the speaker is not uh, aligning, with their own beliefs or or their political beliefs, it's not only about religious belief; it's also about political belief, and that is like matters
Well, I
concerning
was going to say this. It's not just Muslims.
with
There are some
Palestine
political
issue.
issues with
Exactly, it's a
people on the
political
far
thing
left and on the
also.
far right who are also resorting to violence,
Mhm.
intimidating people, gaslighting. This is a problem which isn't just affecting one group within society, or even
Yeah.
if it is predispositional in certain elements of that, there are also other groups that are doing this. And I mean, we've got a situation now where even not just universities, but even like politicians, and you know, they are literally in fear of their lives if they say things which go against the grain. I mean, we've had a number of British politicians that have been attacked from all different parties,
Yes.
and some have been murdered.
Yeah,
I mean,
tragically.
I mean, how can we move forward as a society if people are not allowed to speak their minds and, know that they can do so without these kind of attacks and intimidations?
I mean, this pressure that we are seeing our universities are under, this pressure arises from heated campus protest. We all know that there is radical approach to deal with anything that is not in line with Islam or Islamic beliefs, or it's the political grievances that have been associated with Islam. The cancellation of academic lectures due to
Also
activist
people on the far left,
hostility.
especially, and also there's some elements on the far right that are
Yeah, yeah, of course.
exactly
See,
the same
that's the
thing. Yeah,
thing. I can
and
speak
it's the same
on
issue.
the issue of far right, literally, and of course there are lots of problem with that issue. I can talk about it, but the problem in our university right now, I want to be honest on this issue.
Mm.
Whatever I am seeing right now, it's not an issue that is coming from far right largely. It is coming
Well, I
from,
also mentioned the far left. It's
yeah,
this one,
exactly. This
a
is
lot, the
coming
far
from
right
either
gets a lot
far
more heat
left
than the far left,
or
and yet
the,
the people on the far left
exactly.
that have been
They
very vocal
are,
in some
it's
cases,
a strange,
yeah.
collation, I would say, a red-green alliance. Far left, and then there are Muslim fundamentalists. The left has refused to, make any alliance with moderate Muslims. And I find it really strange that they are making alliances with Muslim fundamentalists, with religious zealots. And then there is this cancellation of academic
Strangely, I
lectures
don't,
due to this
because there are people on the
activism.
far left that,
And
and even like they will not listen to
yeah,
anyone who has a different approach. It's like certain issues for them are totally taboo. It's like
yes,
this whole run about immigration, for instance.
yes,
That issue has been a taboo issue on the left for a long time. And
exactly.
it's like, regardless where people's views are on this, it is an actual issue that affects our country. And
Yes,
that conversation should be had. And how can you adjust policies or improve things one way or another if you can't even discuss the issue? And that's just one example. I mean, there's a lot of issues that the far left seems to take up, which some of
yes.
which have
You know,
become
I would like to
normalized
share my
as almost like
anecdote.
mainstream. And yeah, it's like if you question those things, you get shot
Yes,
down. And we know
that's
about
true.
the far right. I mean, I agree with you that there's a lot of things there, but also they do get heat. But
Yes,
often the left doesn't get the same heat, even when they behave in
exactly.
exactly the same way. And
Sanctimonious
yeah,
left. Yes, that's true. I would like to share my anecdote with
mm,
you. I was on a discussion on BBC Sunday Live, and it was about immigration. And to be honest, I was literally shouted down by a lefty on the panel, and she was literally shouting at me, not letting me talk, interrupting. I was trying to tell her that yes, there are legitimate concerns related to this issue, the immigration, illegal immigrations, and many people from ethnic minority background, they are also concerned. You know, please don't patronize us by saying that oh, we are all victims and we need your support, or your, the savior complex is just nauseating. Please don't do it. But she was literally interrupting me, not letting me say or complete a single sentence. And as we finished the debate, literally I saw someone, coming from the office, of definitely working in that office, and in good position, as if organizing the whole program and all that. That person came out of the office and directly went to that lefty and congratulated her for being so well spoken. And I was like, okay. And she did not talk to me or the person with me on that side, but only talked to that one person, congratulated her, greeted her, and that's it. And then she went away. And I found it really strange that if I am from ethnic minority background, but my narrative is not suitable to paddle your rhetoric, then you would not treat me respectfully. For you, I am not the victim anymore, so I don't deserve any respect. You will treat those people who are from ethnic minority backgrounds, who claim to be victim, I mean, internal victim in some situations. Those people, they deserve your attention, they deserve your respect. And I found it really strange. But that is the reality that people like you and me, Paul, you're not good enough Muslim, to be very honest, in the eyes of the left. You're not good enough practicing Muslim,
I'm the wrong color
because
for a
you are
start.
in
The left.
conversation with an ex-Muslim. You you would like to hear the criticism of your religion. You want to talk about immigration. So you are not a good enough uh, you
Mm.
know victim for them. And that is tragic. That is really tragic. And that is the reason why people are gaining momentum on the side of far right
Yeah,
people. They are getting credence because they are tapping on the grievances of ordinary people who want to express their legitimate concerns. And they are all labeled then as far right. Tell me,
yeah.
is this something that can bring people together? Is this something that can resolve our differences, or, bring us together on some and unite us on some shared values? No, these kind of politically correct acts are just creating more divisions, more polarization. They are just sowing seeds of, divisions between the communities. There is huge resentment within the pockets of our societies against certain communities, against certain, religious beliefs. Why? Because the attitude is that whenever there is any, legitimate criticism of Islam or any attitude that is prevalent in particular section of the Muslim communities, just shut it down, call it Islamophobia, accuse them of racism, just shut it down. And people are far right who are talking about it. I think this is very irresponsible on the part of the left and progressives. They're not doing any service to the ethnic minority background, people who are coming from that background, in my opinion.
They have a culture of low expectations.
Exactly.
As long
Bigotry
as
of low expectation, in fact.
exactly, anybody who's like a successful business person or successful in their career who doesn't fit their narrative, they disparage them. I mean,
Yeah.
even you find it like people from working class communities, you know, English white working class communities, that they do not go along with left wing propaganda and they have their own kind of approach. uh, they get sidelined or even
Yeah.
attacked and gaslit by these. I mean, how is that helping? You would think if you were really working for the ordinary working people, that you would actually be supporting those that have made something of themselves. If you were really supporting the people that have immigrated to this country, you would be making, examples of those that have been successful and highlighting them as role models for people to follow. Those that have successfully integrated and they're doing very well within society, you would want to encourage more of that. But they don't seem to be doing that. They seem to be
Paul, why
encouraging
do you need
those
safe
that are
space?
going
Tell me.
against it. Yeah.
You are such an excellent speaker, but I can see clearly you are a rational person, you are a wise person, you are open to opposing views. Why do you need a safe space for being a Muslim? Tell me why you are resilient enough to listen to the criticism of your beliefs, and still you are a Muslim, right?
Yeah.
Still you are able to argue against the criticism of your religious belief, or any stereotypical thing that is being said about Muslims. So why do you
Well, I
need a
actually
safe
approached
space?
Yasmin Mohammed and Jonathan Sakudoti to have conversations with them, and they invited me onto their podcasts. And I went on there because, and Yasmin actually gave me quite a grilling. But I mean, I accepted that because, I'm not afraid to have those conversations. And I might disagree with some of it, I might not like some of it, it might be quite uncomfortable. But at the same time, it's like we have to have those conversations, which is why I approach them.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, we have to build bridges. You can believe whatever you want to believe. I can believe whatever I want to believe. Still, we can interact with each other in a cordial, in a amable, in a friendly manner. Why
yeah.
not?
Well, even during this podcast, we've disagreed on some things, but we've done so
Yes, we are
amicably.
agreeing to
Yeah.
disagree. And I think I love this thing, about the conversation. I don't want to live in an echo chamber where I can just listen to only the opinion which are in line with my own beliefs. I want to, have
What do we
disagreements.
learn from that? How do we benefit
Exactly,
from that? Yeah.
exactly. And I want to have criticism. I want to have feedback. This is how I believe that debates and conversations should be conducted in a free, secular, liberal democracies such as Britain. And the act of cancellation of academic lectures due to activist hostility and then legal disputes over the editing of guest speeches and the criticism of institutional policies prioritize enforced respect over traditional tolerance of free speech. I think these are the things which are actually, these are radicalizing ordinary people. People, they are forgetting that these values, these values of free speech are the bedrock of the society they reside in. And if they lose this, these values, then of course there would be huge repercussions for the whole society. And we would be dragged into medieval times in dark ages, once we lose this precarious right to free speech. Yes, it is precarious. We have to defend it days in, days out. We cannot just take it for granted. And in my opinion, making your place an echo chamber does not make you a resilient person.
Mm.
It makes you fragile, a snowflake. And I find it really patronizing when somebody from the left or progressive tells me that you need a safe space. Nobody should be saying anything about your heritage, about your beliefs, about your culture. And I find it really patronizing that what do you think who I am? Am I not able to, receive criticism or listen to the opposing views? Intellectually deficient person do you think I am? I am not intellectually, doing well. I mean, I want these students who are right now in Oxford and in other universities, please consider these kind of argument that and reflect on your attitude, on your opinions. You are far better than they are telling you to be. You can do brilliant things. You're studying in Oxford. It is an achievement in itself.
Yeah.
It says a lot about you as a person, about your determination, about your mental and intellectual capabilities. Then why you are just giving up your, intellectual resistance in the name of just gaining some safe space for your ideas? I mean, I really want them to think about it.
It's really valuable conversation that we had on this, and I agree with you about safe spaces. I mean, unless someone is very vulnerable person, they might need a safe space, but then it's like that's like a cushion around them to protect them. That's some people need that because those
Yes,
particular people are vulnerable, and I'm talking about particular individuals here. But it's like generally speaking in society, if we all walk around with cushions around us and don't engage properly with other people, we're limiting our own growth, we're limiting our own development, we're limiting our conversational abilities, and we're never going to get anywhere with that. And in fact,
yes,
the thing that I mean, I grew up during the Cold War, and what was the difference between Western societies and between the Eastern Bloc at that time? There was one fundamental difference, more than anything else. In the West, we had freedom of speech.
yes,
In the East, you did not. They were tyrannical regimes, and you said something wrong, you ended up in the gulag. is that the kind of society that we want to live in? Well, no, thank you. I don't want to live in that sort of society, and I know you don't.
Exactly,
So wherever
exactly.
we disagree on things, I'm happy to have those conversations. And
Yeah.
it,
I
it
mean,
was a
I've
real
been
pleasure.
called
Yeah.
a sellout, a traitor, and lots of names just because I defend the free speech, and I appreciate Britain for upholding the values of free speech. I appreciate the British society, the ordinary people who understand the value of having this right protected under the law of the land. That
Mm.
is why people, they just literally call me that you are a traitor because you are praising about Britain or anything that is related to Britain. I mean, this is really strange that we were talking about this thing before we started this podcast, that the radical attitude that I personally have observed here in the UK. I did not observe that in back in Pakistan, in ordinary
Mm.
people, because ordinary people mostly in Pakistan, they are not very much concerned about, you know, manifesting their religiosity in their day-to-day life, in every single minute of their life, and try to wear religion on their sleeves while walking down the streets. People, they are not particularly five-time offering prayer 5 times a day. They are not particularly having all 30 days fast, during Ramadan. There are families, they are having an ordinary lifestyle where sometimes you are able to do it, sometimes you're not, a casual lifestyle. In my own home, my mom, she was very uh, against this one thing that children should not be fasting. As a child going to school, when my sister
They
and
don't need to
and
actually.
and
No.
me, we would try to do this fasting because the other girls, they would do in school. So what we do in the morning, Sahri time, we would wake up and we would go to kitchen and we eat something, whatever is there, and then we come back to bed and you pretend to be to be sleeping. And then my mom, when she would notice that we are not taking breakfast before going to school, she would sternly say, "Come back here, sit down, finish your breakfast. You are too young to do fast. You have to study in school. You would be playing there. You cannot stay thirsty for so long, and you need to have your breakfast and you're not fasting. When you will grow old, then you would be able to do it. Don't worry." So this is the kind of environment was back in Pakistan. I grew up in that environment. But here in primary schools, I'm telling you the truth. In primary schools, emails are sent out to Muslim parents that if your child is fasting, please let us know. We will try to make your child comfortable as much as possible in the school during the school time. Do you find it strange? I found this horrendous, really, that a primary school child is expected to fast during Ramadan.
Yeah, and it's not from the school. The school's doing that because the families are
But
expecting them to
it is
fast. Yeah.
happening that they know that children are fasting in primary school.
Mm.
That's why, of course, instead of objecting to this, I would say bizarre thing, they should have clearly said that it should not be happening to kids. But again, then there are repercussions.
But they wouldn't
Some
be able to. And this goes
headmistress
back to
in
the point.
London,
It's
she
like,
tried to do so, and
yeah,
she received death threats, and she had to reverse the decision.
yeah.
It's the Muslim parents. They are ordinary people. They are not fundamentalists. They are not religious zealots. But they think it is okay for their children to do fasting during Ramadan and to stay hungry and thirsty during, long day. I find it strange. And I think we have to have these conversations in an
But
honest and
even from a
frank
religious
manner.
perspective, where in my, chaplain or sheikh hat, I mean, it's like it's not mandatory on children that they have to complete the fasts. Normally, what parents would do is they'd do half the day fast or something. They'd try a little bit, and then if they start to get a bit too hungry, don't worry, you have something to drink or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, because especially for very young children. I
yes,
mean, this thing that they have to go through the whole day, and it's expected of them from a very early age. this is an innovation. It's not something which actually comes from our tradition. And it is quite shocking that is being enforced in such a way. Um, I must admit
I
also,
really appreciate
when
that you think like so,
yeah,
and
well,
I hope so that people who watch your podcast they learn from this thing that you can be a Muslim, but still you can criticize, the odd bits of your culture, of your, orthodox belief, because I know that personally, it does not come from Islam, and it is not required in Islam to make children fast. It is not required in Islam to make little girls wear hijab. I know it, but people they do it here anyway.
and
They
the
have
scary
made
thing
it.
is, they actually think it's Islam, and someone's told them that, and they believe that. I mean, I'm always amazed when I meet Muslims from, as you mentioned, Pakistan, the same country that the diaspora community comes from. And yet, many Muslims I've met from Pakistan are far more educated, far more eloquent, and even the religious ones. I'm not talking even about the ones that are totally secular, but the religious ones as well. And then when you meet Muslims from Indonesia and from the Middle East and from, I see the same kind of thing. They're usually fairly balanced, normal people that don't hold these extremist views on things. And when I say extremist, I'm not talking about ISIS or Al Qaeda. I'm just talking about extremism in the religion itself, in taking things too far.
Yeah, when you take things like
You
in
don't
literal
find
sense.
this in many of these communities to the same extent that you find within certain elements of the diaspora community in the UK. And it really worries me. And it's worried me for a long time, which is partly why I do what I do, because this is not from how I was taught Islam by my sheikhs. And it's not what I see how Islam is practiced around the world in many countries. And you'll even have people from the diaspora community here, and they will be condemning the Saudis for not being Muslim enough, or the
Exactly. I mean,
Arabs in the
that's a very
Emirates for not being
ridiculous
Muslim enough.
statement.
Or they just condemn everyone around the world. I mean, think
That's
about
true.
it logically. There's 1.61 billion Muslims in the world. If you're going
Muslims.
to go around condemning most of them as not being Muslim enough,
And as far as
perhaps you
I
are the one who's misinterpreted Islam and not the other 1.61 billion of us.
And Paul, this is very interesting because as far as I understand, a Muslim is not allowed to say this thing about other Muslims that they are not Muslim because once a person is professing Shahada, you are not allowed to say that you are not Muslim because whatever that person is doing in their personal life it is between Allah and that person.
Yeah.
Because I know that this is the kind of mindset, and it was forbidden in Islam to tell other Muslims that you are not Muslim enough, you are not practicing Muslim. These are the terms that they have created here, they have coined here in the West to disregard any criticism of their religion by saying, oh, you're not good enough Muslim, so your opinions are not credible. It's just a weapon in their hands to
Well,
just, for
yeah.
example, you talk about Arwa, the president of the debating Oxford Debating Society, and her speech. In her speech, she was clearly saying that people who are committing crimes, they are not Muslims. To me, it would have been far better if she had said that these people are extremists and they have taken religion to another level in order to justify whatever they were doing.
No, that's correct. I don't
She
practice
should
takfir
have, she
on people,
should
even on
have
people
this
that are in
guts
ISIS and Al Qaeda. I don't
to
practice
exactly,
takfir
you
on
you
them
cannot
because
say that ISIS is not Muslim, Al Qaeda is not Muslim. These individuals who are considered lone wolf, they are not
Mm,
Muslims. uh, this is not the solution in my opinion. You need to acknowledge that yes, there are some problematic bits like any other religion. Islam is not an exception. There are some problematic bits in the religion, and people they cherry pick those bits
mm,
and they do act upon those bits and try to relate 7th century mindset to the 21st century. Admit it, condemn it, and tell people that if you are a Muslim and you think that you can do it, it's not right. Don't tell them that, oh, you're not Muslim, because saying that you're not Muslim is just good for nothing.
But the thing is, I mean, I don't do this because that's exactly what these extremists do in ISIS and Al Qaeda, which is why they justify the killing of Muslims. I mean, they kill more Muslims than anybody else. And, you know, they do so because they don't see those Muslims as Muslims. But I mean, this comes, what you're saying comes from a hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he said that if one person calls another person a kafir, one of them definitely is. So if one person calls another person as they are a rejecter of the religion, then one of them definitely is. And he carried it on and he says, and if it's not the one who's being called that, then it is the one who is calling them. So I mean, there you have it. The Prophet, peace be upon him, really strongly cautioned against people doing this, and yet people do.
You
So
know, you are Sufi, and my mom was Sufi. So I love this strand of Islam. I know that Sufis are very, very different from the rest of the, sects in Islam. They see their religion in a very different light. I'm an ex-Muslim. I'm an atheist. However, I still appreciate the spirit of my mother, how she used to conduct herself as a Muslim. She would try to relate, mostly with human beings. She wouldn't say that, oh, they are Hindu, they are Christian, they are different from us. She would believe that, yes, we have shared humanity and we can be united under this one notion of humanity. And I love this thing about, this Sufi strand of Islam. And I think Muslims, they need to promote these aspects of their religion if they want people to see their religion in good light. First, they have to understand their own religion in good light, and then they would be able to, persuade other people.
mm. And also see other people in their religions and their beliefs also in a good light. There's some good in all of them, even
Yeah.
if we don't agree with the entire thing, you know. Well, thank you, Khadija Khan. It's been a real pleasure. And thank you for joining us. And I look forward perhaps having another conversation with you at some point.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's been a pleasure really talking to you, and I hope to be on your podcast soon.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful
You
weekend.
too. Thank you.